Hello, my name is Jennifer McCurdy and I'm here in San Diego at the Potters Council Porcelain 2 workshop and just got through presenting some of my techniques. So what I'll do is to take the throne form and alter it for you, such as this form is. The first thing I will do is to divide the shape into however many sections I want. In this case, I have divided the form into 6. So I take this form and I start by dividing like so. And then I alter the form by first just making little lines that are going to say where my folds are going to go. The key to these alterations that I do is that I do not press in all at once. Once I have the lines all the way around, then I will take my thumb using the arc of my hand to be my tool. This knuckle right here is the main tool that I'm using to alter this piece. Just pull that. Once I've set up my fold lines quite well, I can go in and just increase the fold. This alteration is done when the clay is still plastic. I have let it sit off the wheel so it's not sticky plastic. See, it's white plastic. You can see how as the piece is being folded in, it's actually getting smaller, which stands to reason. As you accordion in a thing, you get a smaller piece. But now this is, once this is dry, this is going to make for a much stronger form. Because I've got all of that corrugation. You know, just like a tin roof is more strong corrugated than if you had it straight tin. Now our next step is to take the altered form and put it into the carved form. And this is starting on the soft side of leather hard and working towards the hard side of leather hard. So the first thing I do is I lay in what I call my longitude lines. And I sort of follow my valley that you see on the valleys of the corrugation. Then I come back and I put my longitude lines in my on top of my hills. So I've got traverse lines on the top of the hills and the bottom of the valleys. So just by using my longitude lines and from going from the valleys up to the top of the hills, connecting these lines together, I start developing my pattern. After I have all of my lines penciled in, I have my incision lines penciled in, and then that is where I'm going to cut the edge, as here. And I also have marked where I want to do my carving. So I take my WS Sgraffito tool, and I do not want to carve the first mark, which is going to be where I'm going to cut. So I go down to the second one. I just have to go over the whole ground. Follow all the lines. Still, I'm going from my valley, or my hill into my valley. After I have marked with this graffito tool all the lines that I'm going to carve out, I switch to my trimming tool, which I'm using to carve away these lines on either one side of the line that I've cut or the other. So that gives me a shadow. You can see where this has just been cut right like so. And then it's going to come up into a point when I carve away on the other side of the line. It's rough now, and what I want to do is let the piece dry before I sand any of the carving marks away. So the next step I do is I cut away all of my edge. When I cut away the strong arch support inherent in the throne form, such as I am doing right now, I am setting up the opportunity for slumping, movement in the kiln. This is desirable to me. It is the last chance that I'm going to get at plasticity. Okay, and so something like this piece here, sometimes I like to make my edge more jagged. I may go ahead and cut that away. Or I can, at this stage, just, it's pretty soft. I can actually do this. So in our quest toward this piece, or this type of piece, since we've altered and carved, the next thing we do is wait until the piece gets to be bone dry, and we sand the piece. Now we have another set of tools to use. These are our tools for sanding. I have pieces of scrubby that I cut up into little pieces. So this is the Scotch Brite, green Scotch Brite. I have the sponge brushes that you get at the hardware store. You want the poly brush made in the US, not the ones made in China, and the reason is that the little plastic piece on the inside that gives you that you push against is closer to the surface of the edge of the brush, and you don't want this part to be limp. You want the stiffness. I use the 2-inch brush and the 1-inch. So a lot of times just buy it, but what you can do is I have taken the 1-inch and put it on in this case I have put it on a skewer, like a barbecue skewer, so that when I want to, I can get on the inside of pieces to sponge too. Get on the inside of pieces to sponge. And again, put on with handy paper tape. I have a piece of scrubby also with paper tape used for scrubbing, and a sponge for the same purpose. And of course, the last tool that you need for sanding is your respirator. It's very important to wear this anytime that you are sanding any clay. So I use first the scrubby this little scrubby piece to get any of these sharp lines out. That is the tool to use to get those lines out. The sponge will make it nice and smooth, but it won't actually get out the sharp edge. So I would just go over the whole ground of this piece, just like so, with this scrubby. You can see the difference now between this piece that has been gone over with the scrubby and right here where it has not. Then I will go over, to smooth any of my scrubby marks out, I will go over with the brush. I use a little water in this sponge. But remember that as you use the water, you're weakening the piece again. So be aware of that. You don't want to absolutely soak your piece. This sponge is harder, rougher than my elephant ear. So then I will go over the whole piece and get out any of those sponge marks, nice and smooth. And then the last thing will be to take a piece of paper towel or some other sort of abrasive material and just sort of burnish and get out any of my sponge marks. I was experimenting with how far I could push the clay and started firing the pieces balanced upside down on a stilt. This piece is a little too wet. Let's say this one, okay? We'll balance this upside down, and then these places where I've cut are just going to relax and droop to the point where when it comes out of the kiln, then it is this piece here. This piece was very much spherical, just as this piece was when I put it into the kiln, but when it collapsed so much, then it changed shape. When I turned the piece back right side up, it had transformed into a completely different shape. It's a fun technique. I think the possibilities are endless. Do try it at home.